Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Blue Veil Wellness Show. I'm Christy Murray, Catholic nurse practitioner, and this is where we explore faith, food, and function because true wellness nourishes the whole person. I'm so glad you're here today, whether you're watching live or catching the replay. And if you're watching live, welcome and go ahead and say hello in the chat and tell me where you're joining from. And feel free to drop questions as we go, and I will try to weave them into the conversation. Today's episode is one I've been really looking forward to. I'm so excited to have Alexis here, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of you. We are going to talk about endometriosis. So, endometriosis affects roughly 1 in 10 women of reproductive age. It may be more because of all the toxins in our environment nowadays. And yet, so most of them spend years being told that their pain is normal. Imagine that. It affects quality of life to the extremes. Being dismissed, being undertreated, so being handed a prescription instead of answers. Today's guest has dedicated her career to changing that. Alexis Brooks is a registered dietitian with over 10 years of clinical experience and a master's degree in nutritional science. She is the founder of Alexis Brooks Nutrition and the creator of the Endo Code, a root cause framework that combines strategic lab testing, gut testing, and inflammation reduction, in addition to personalized nutrition planning, all for women navigating endometriosis. So, what sets her apart is that this isn't just clinical for her. She's navigated endometriosis herself. She understands what it means to search for answers, what the system keeps telling you that there aren't any answers. So, she describes her approach as grounded in empathy, honesty, and vulnerability. And that comes through in everything she creates. So, Alexis, welcome to Blue Veil Wellness Show. I'm really grateful that you're here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, excited to have this conversation. But before we dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words and tell us who you are and what brought you to this work.
All right, so I am Alexis, creator of Alexis Brooks Nutrition, and as you mentioned, I am a dietitian, but I also have endometriosis, so that's really what brought me into specifically focusing on endometriosis as a specialty. I was diagnosed actually almost 5 years to the day now that I think about it, so 2021, and yeah, it was at that time I was already a dietitian, but it was at that time where I began to do deep research, specifically into nutrition for endometriosis and diving deeper into the functional world. So that is what really shaped my experience and my decision to pivot to exclusively work with women with endometriosis.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that. So, but before we get into the good stuff, I have 3 quick questions for you. So, these are my little warm up for ritual for every guest. So, what book are you reading right now?
Ooh, oh, that's a really good question. So actually, I just finished the Let Them Theory by Mel
Oh, someone gave me that for my birthday. It's on my book to read list.
Oh yeah, you'll really enjoy it. It's a good one.
Oh, okay, awesome. So then what is the first thing that you do in the morning?
First thing I do is pray. That's the very first thing. As soon as my alarm goes off, or as soon as I open my eyes, that's the first thing I'm doing is expressing gratitude and also asking for strength to go through with the day.
I love it. I think like we get so busy in life that as soon as the alarm goes off, we just jump up and then just rush, right?
Hmm.
Love that you do that. So then now, what's your favorite food? This is important, especially coming from a dietitian.
Oh, that's funny. I was thinking about this the other day because I think sounds kind of random. So it's actually just an ingredient, but it is a food. But I love beans. I love beans so much, and I've been craving them a lot lately. So
Uh-huh.
I know that's not a dish, but like if I were to
Mhm.
say a favorite food is probably beans. They're
Oh,
so
so it
versatile.
doesn't matter what kind of beans as long as it's beans?
Pretty much. But I think my favorite bean is black beans. I've been eating a lot of chickpeas lately, and
Mhm.
I was like, I need to get some black beans back into my rotation because that's probably my favorite bean.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Well,
super
thanks for
random, I know.
sharing. So, right, let's get into it. So many women in this community are dealing with symptoms, right, that have been normalized or minimized for years. So, like, symptoms like pain, fatigue, bloating, brain fog, and hormonal, chaos. So, what I love about Alexa's work is that she refuses to treat endometriosis as a single issue. So she sees it as a whole body signal and she looks at what's underneath. And that's exactly the kind of conversation that this community deserves. So let's start. So, first question for you, Alexis, is that so endometriosis is often described as a gynecological condition, um, but you see it differently. So, how would you describe what endometriosis is from a root cause perspective?
Yeah, I think it's actually quite a disservice to women to look at it only as a reproductive or a gynecologic issue because it doesn't just live in the pelvis. Actually, the definition of endometriosis is that it lives outside the uterus. So endometriosis can be found basically from head to toe, from our lungs, our brain, our bowels. It can affect so many parts of our body. So I look at it more as a systemic whole body disease. And because of that, we have to address multiple systems throughout the body to truly help people. And I find that people do much better if we're looking at systems versus just the symptoms.
Amazing. So before we proceed, I want to see your beautiful face, but I think like the sun is shining.
Oh no! I shift a little bit
Oh, there you go. Oh,
here.
oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me know.
I love sunshine, but it's covering your beautiful face. All right. So many women actually spent years of being told that having like pain during your cycles is normal, right? We hear that all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
actually was one of them. So I know, and sometimes we're told that, oh, it's just not that bad. It's just bad period. So what do you think is driving this disconnect in conventional medicine?
Ooh, I think part of the disconnect is the training. So a lot of times, providers are not trained to know what a normal period is, and I think providers and also like I think it's partly our society too, of like the expectation is for women to kind of to suffer and they have their own thing. We don't really pay attention to what's going on with women, especially if it's down there. So I
Mhm.
think there's a bit of a taboo there, but yeah, I think also with the training too is that because um, majority of providers do not get trained in the menstrual cycle, what's considered healthy, what's considered normal, and certainly not conditions that are like endometriosis, for example, is not part of like the standard training across the board in a lot of disciplines. It's kind of like this gray area where they're just like, well, that should be normal because it's so common too. And I think a lot of times we confuse what's common to something that's normal, but just because it happens really often, just because a lot of women
Mm.
experience painful periods or heavy periods or PMS, like it doesn't actually make it normal. It's just common.
Yes, so common and normal are two different things. I actually gave a hormone class to, at the community here where I live, and women like they're like reaching perimenopause, but then I taught them about like periods and what PCOS is and endometriosis and what is normal and not normal in periods. So one of the ladies there, she had her jaw like, her jaw dropped, and she said, "So you mean my daughter was actually telling the truth?" And like I'm actually not believing her when she told me that her periods are really painful, and I just like. And then she felt bad. She's like, "Oh my gosh, my daughter's been telling me this for years, and I just told her quit being dramatic." Or
Mm,
so yeah, I think it's the education as well, like across the board. And like you said,
yeah,
just because it's common doesn't make it normal.
right. And I think that's unfortunate that, that's such I think a common story where women and girls are told that something's normal by their family member too. And so
Mm,
like they're already told by their doctor, so they're like, okay, I guess this is normal. But then like the mother or aunt or a sister or someone else in the family will
yes.
also like confirm, be like, yeah, that is normal. Like that's what I went through. That's what your sister went through. And but it's like actually the whole family has an issue. Like
Yes.
everyone's having this issue, but it seems like it's normal.
Mm. So you said endometriosis is a whole body inflammatory condition. So can
Hmm.
you walk us through what that actually means and why is this inflammation so important to this picture?
Yeah, so when it comes to endometriosis, there are lesions that are similar to the endometrial-like cells, basically that are traveling, or I don't know if I should say that they're traveling, but they implant throughout the body. But
Mhm.
these particular endometriosis lesions, they have their own like ecosystem, so they have their own environment. They put out hormones themselves. They put out estrogen, and that excess estrogen creates an environment that's really inflammatory. And a lot of like a hallmark, not the only symptom, but a hallmark of endometriosis is pain. And part of that is related to the inflammation. So not just the inflammation of like what our body itself is producing, but also the lesions what
Mhm.
they're producing. And so that lends to a lot of the symptoms of like the brain fog, the heavy bleeding, the PMS like symptoms. We know that when there is chronic pain and chronic inflammation also rewires the brain too. So it's something that absolutely affects the whole body.
Mm. So then, like I describe, endometriosis to my patients and people I work with, is that endometriosis growths are fed by estrogen. So the more estrogen you have, it's food for the endometriosis. So that's why birth control is the common first line, right? Because if you suppress ovulation, um, estrogen's not being produced, so then you're starving those endometriosis growths.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But then you have a way of like helping women instead of like giving, like taking care of themselves in different ways besides like relying on birth control. So talk to me about the gut endometriosis connection.
Yeah, okay. So the gut is so important because when we think about like the key systems that are impacted by endometriosis, the gut plays a role in a bit of all of them. So with endometriosis, we have nervous system dysregulation. We also have blood sugar dysregulation. We've
Mhm.
got the hormone imbalance. So you mentioned like the excess estrogen that helps to feed and grow those lesions. Um, we've also got inflammation. Of course, that's a big one, and then immune system activation. But when we think about it, there's origins of all those things in the gut. So
Mhm.
70% of the immune system lives in the gut. Inflammation is a response of the immune system. And the gut itself actually is plays a really big role in how our hormones get broken down.
Mhm.
So that also lends to the piece of like excess estrogen. So the gut is somewhere that I always focus on because if we are able to address the gut, support it, we're able to actually impact all these other areas at the same time.
Okay, that's amazing. So, like, what is the earliest age? I mean, because like endometriosis can present itself like as soon as a woman starts menstruating, right?
Hmm.
But then sometimes like it's progressive, so the
Right.
growths as the growths get worse over time, then the pain of course gets worse. So like maybe if the gut is addressed sooner rather than later, maybe we can save like a lot of these women from like debilitating pain later on.
It is, and actually, there's some research showing that a lot of girls will experience IBS-like symptoms before they're even in puberty.
Mhm.
So that's another common bucket of symptoms that women with or people with endometriosis experience is digestive issues like the
Mhm.
constipation, the diarrhea, the bloating, what's called endobelly in the endometriosis community. But a
Okay.
lot of those symptoms are happening before they even have their first period. And so if we're
Oh.
able to look at that, and I know it's a little challenging because girls, if they're not having their period yet, they're not cycling, so maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more difficult to decipher. But I know for me, I definitely had constipation like all of my like since I was a child, very very young, elementary school,
Mhm.
before long before I ever started my period. So yeah, if we're actually able to address that though, like the gut
Mhm.
issues and not just like throw I don't know, whatever random things we throw at constipation or gut
Yeah.
issues, right? Pepto-Bismol and all these things. Like if we actually look at it as a
Mhm.
clear signal even early on, I think we could help a lot of girls and women.
Wow. Wow, that's it's interesting because I do hear, sometimes it's easy to diagnose endometriosis when someone, comes to you and say, "I have pain with my periods." Okay, good. It's hormonal, it's endometriosis, it comes with your period. But there's also, of course, not really just a subset, like some women, I don't know what the percentage is, that they have pain like all throughout, like all
Mhm.
month. It's just varying degrees. So then when, they say that, it's hard to kind of pinpoint, is this hormonal? Is this IBS? So I'm glad that you said that it can present as IBS symptoms as well.
Mhm.
So you created the Endo Code as a framework to, getting to the root causes. So can you explain the major pillars of this approach and what you're looking for and why?
Yeah. So the key things it is having that holistic approach. And what we start off is being able to identify the root cause. So kind of what we're talking about, instead of looking at the symptoms, like that is a lot, that is really helpful data to know what symptoms are, but we want to like scale it back and see, but what's going on?
Mhm.
Like, why is that symptom presenting itself? So in the very beginning, we are talking about like, what are the key triggers for you? What's the actual issue? And then we focus on restoring. So we restore the gut. A lot of times we have really messed up guts where the bacteria is not balanced, or it's not in the proper place or the proper
Mhm.
amounts. So we're focusing on how to address the gut, and then rebalancing the hormones. And then lastly,
Mhm.
we're moving into a reset. So also like focusing on the nervous system, which I think is definitely conventionally it's missed. We kind of look at the body as like these separate pieces that don't really go together, but the nervous system is a really important aspect too. So it's kind of yeah, addressing the nervous system, stress resilience, and then making sure that they know like what the next step is, because endometriosis is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
We thought for a really long time that it ends in menopause, but turns out that it doesn't.
Oh, it
Symptoms
doesn't.
growth, but if there's still lesions present, they have their
Mhm.
own estrogen stores supply.
Yeah.
So like that's a thing too. But really, it's like knowing the next steps and making sure they have the right team around them. Because
Mhm.
I'm very big on it being a having a multidisciplinary team around
Mhm.
people with endometriosis, because I can only do so much, and each person has their own specialty and gift, and together we can
Mhm.
really wrap around and support the person.
Yeah, so yeah, speaking of support, because like endometriosis growths, they're structural mechanical, issues. So you have to have, the buy-in of a surgeon, right, to
Mhm.
remove those excisions. So then when the excisions or to excise the lesions. So when
Mhm.
those lesions have been excised, then comes, like the supportive holistic method of like, okay, how do we prevent the lesions from returning?
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think that's important too, that people understand that. I think that message gets missed often, is that a
Hmm.
lot of times people think like, okay, I'm gonna get the surgery. I had the surgery, the lesions are gone. Like, woof, I'm glad that's over, and they'll
Uh-huh.
feel better. But it's really important, like you said, that those foundations continue to support post surgery too, making sure that there's not a recurrence.
Hmm. And it's not correlated too, because like I've been told by my peers that just because there's extensive endometriosis lesions, it's not correlated to the pain that they're feeling. Because sometimes they're in
Yeah.
so much pain, but then there's barely any lesions. But then sometimes there's a lot of lesions, but the woman's not really experiencing any pain.
Yeah, that's so crazy, right?
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll
so
figure out what that means through some research. But yeah, it's interesting how they're not correlated.
yeah, because like they've actually told me like they did some surgery for something else, and then they saw endometriosis growth. They didn't remove it because it was not, of course, it's not indicated in the consent, and then
Mhm.
um, the the person was not really complaining of any pain in that area, so they left it alone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and of course, like we all know, that surgery doesn't really like fix everything. It's a big
Right.
part of, like you said, it's a team approach.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what does strategic testing look like for your clients? And what are you measuring that other practitioners might not be considering?
Yeah, so I would say the testing that I use the most often are usually around hormones and gut. So
Mhm.
in the testing that I do specific to the gut, we're looking at the full, like the microbiome, like all the organisms that are going on. Because this tends to be an issue with people with endometriosis. We tend to have less of those bacteria in communities that are really beneficial for us, that help out
Mhm.
with our immune system and help to keep inflammation in track. We usually have an imbalance of that. And then, but this particular test, it will go through bacteria, yeast, parasites, digestive function, like what if there's anything going on with like our stomach acid or enzymes that we need to break down the foods that we're eating. So that's really helpful to just kind of give that whole framework. And when the gut is working better, as I mentioned, inflammation comes down, immune system is stronger, and the activation will come down to we're better able to process hormones. And then the other testing I like to do, it's a dried urine test where we are
Mhm.
measuring a whole lot. We're measuring the sex hormones, so like
Mhm.
estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And what differs with this particular test versus doing a like a blood test, for example, is that it's actually looking at the metabolite. So it's looking at how your body uniquely processes these hormones. And I find that that is a really helpful nuance because sometimes a person may have a symptom that automatically we might think like, oh, this is what the hormone probably is. And when you see how it's broken down, like it could actually be something different than what you would have guessed it would have been. So that nuance is helpful.
Yeah, because like we always have to go to the upstream, right? Just because something is high doesn't mean we should reduce it or like, you know, like do something to like counteract it. It could be some blockage somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And I forgot what I was going to ask. It'll come to me. um, oh yeah. So like bacteria, you mentioned bacteria. Is there like a specific, like bacteria that you see that's either missing or like high in women who have endometriosis?
Yeah, I would say pretty consistently, I see Akkermansia being low with
Oh,
people with
okay.
endo, and that's a bacteria. It's one of our beneficial bacteria. It helps with the permeability, or yeah, like the health of our intestines, the permeability and the integrity of our gut lining. Um, so when that's low, we can end up having like more immune system activation and more inflammation. So that's that one I see actually pretty consistently. Um,
Mhm.
I would say it's a mix in terms of like what is high, like in terms of like a bacteria that we don't really want to be high, that is high. Um, I've seen a variety of things, whether it be like E. coli or C. diff,
Okay.
but oftentimes there is some sort of overgrowth I've seen too.
Mm. So do you see a lot like if a person has a history of being on chronic antibiotics or like a lot of antibiotics, even not chronically, but just like repeated, um, would they have like an increased chance of having endometriosis?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess to answer the question in terms of like what I've seen clinically,
Uh-huh.
uh, a lot of people who have endometriosis have a history of high antibiotics. But I
Oh,
don't know if
okay.
we have the research to say like there's definitely a correlation for sure, at least like what I've seen. I don't know if we
Mhm.
have like any studies to show that it's a causal thing. Um,
Uh-huh.
but that's an interesting thought. I'm
Yeah, I
sure.
just thought about it because, like, if your gut is messed up, like, hey, your hormones are like in imbalance, and like increases your risk of like certain things.
That's funny that you say that because this is a mouse study, but there is a study where they basically implanted they took a mouse that was sterile, so it had like no bacteria at all in its system, and then they gave it endometriosis,
Oh,
and
mouse.
they found another another mouse that was not sterile, so it didn't have like it did had like healthy populations of bacteria, and the way to um, they're able to reverse endometriosis when they added the healthy bacteria into that mouse.
Oh.
Like there's a lot of we of course have not done that to humans at all in that way, but yeah, there's a
Mhm.
lot to be said about the bacteria, the balances.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So for women who have been living with endo diagnosis for years and has tried multiple things that did not work, so what does their path look like with a root cause approach?
Ooh, across the board, or would you say like for diet,
Um,
just like
Across the
all
board.
across the board? So root cause approach, I would look at. I do this often with my clients, especially starting off, is we're doing kind of like a trigger map where we're looking at like their life as a whole to see what could possibly be triggering it or be a sustained trigger for them. So I think it's important that we're looking at multiple parts of our life, including sleep, like how's our sleep hygiene, what's the sleep quality like, looking at nervous system, looking at our stress bucket, is it overflowing, looking at, I refer to it as like more of an inflammatory lifestyle versus just an inflammatory
Mm.
diet. So like, what habits do we have that are more inflammatory? It's like, how do we talk to ourselves? How do people talk to us? What's our environment like? Yes, well, how do we eat? And like, what's our air and water? All those things.
Uh-huh.
But I think looking at it, like zooming out a lot and like looking at the big picture is really important. And when we have that conversation, people tend to find something like, oh yeah, like there is this thing that's really triggering for me. Like it could be a family member that they don't really have a great relationship with, and they're like, whenever I talk to that person, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe days after this type of conversation that we have, like I'll have pelvic pain or certain things like that. So I think it's a lot of being reflective that could be helpful, and it just points us in a direction, and we can go from there.
Wow. Yeah, so it's really like not just food and not just, not just like our body is just inflamed for some reason. There's a lot of things that trigger that. And like I just have a story about it. I was on a podcast interview with a cardiologist a few weeks ago. So he's a cardiologist, and then he said like his wife would have palpitations. So then, like, of course, like she had a Holter monitor, they're monitoring everything. But then they realized that she would get anxiety and have palpitations every time she talks to her mom.
There it
Yeah.
is.
And I share that because, like, he was saying, like, I'm a cardiologist, like, got her
I
all,
should know.
I should know. And then, well, he went through the science route, right? And he was
Yeah.
not wrong. So he,
Right.
recommended all these things. But, like, really, like you said, it's the triggering factors that surround us. Yeah. So now how let's talk about nutrition. So
Mhm.
how does nutrition specifically move the needle for endometriosis?
Yeah, so we can definitely leverage nutrition to move those levers. So in terms of balancing our hormones, we know that if we are having balanced meals, we're eating enough protein with our meals, getting enough fiber. Particularly fiber, it helps out with estrogen, having excess estrogen, so detoxifying that out our bodies. So that's really important for that. We know that nutrition also can impact progesterone levels, which is helps to counterbalance estrogen. So
Mm-hmm.
if, making sure that we're eating enough carbohydrates, but also having like vitamin C, um, making sure that we're balancing our blood sugars, because that can also, if they're not, they can also impact our progesterone levels. Um, the fiber as a whole and like plants, they help to seed our gut, which then begins to support all those other areas. And um, I would say nutrition is one of the single most important things that we can do to reduce inflammation. So deciphering what is inflammatory, and that's, we do have some like key things that we know are inflammatory across the board. Like I would say alcohol is absolutely one for everybody,
Yeah.
but then there's other things that are more specific to a person. So identifying what those foods may be for you, even if they're healthy foods. So I have worked with people, and we're trialing and identifying what those foods are. And they find a food that they're like, it's super random to them. They're like, oh, I eat this all the time. It's a healthy food, but their body doesn't like it. And when they
Mhm.
change that, like they feel much better. So yeah, being able to make those adjustments, then adding in a ton of foods that are anti-inflammatory. So a lot of plants and herbs, and um, what I say is foods that stain. So like turmeric,
Mm.
pomegranate, berries. Think of like the really deeply pigmented fruits and vegetables. Those are really high in antioxidants too.
Oh, so that's a good way to like figure out. Like, that's good. So yeah, so foods that stain, like colorful foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tell some of my people people I work with, my patients, like if they like suspect they have high estrogen or like have some of these symptoms, and they ask me what should I eat or what can I do. So then I tell them eat a lot of kale, spinach, cruciferous vegetables, because they help excrete the estrogen from your system. So then you don't have all these like estrogen just recirculating and then like elevating your levels to where it's unhealthy for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm all about the cruciferous vegetables. The
Mhm.
broccoli sprouts too are really helpful.
Yeah, that's true because it has like what enzyme does it have? I forget.
I was gonna say sulforaphane
Yes,
and
sulforaphane.
I believe I3C, endo 3 carbinol. I think it's also in there.
Yeah. So like for everyone listening, so the IC3 and sulforaphane are really good metabolizers of estrogen. It helps us, like if we have it in our system, it helps us excrete like the excess estrogen that's in our system. So broccoli sprouts
Hmm.
and cruciferous vegetables. So what's the most impactful dietary shifts that you see that's making a real difference in the women that you work with?
Ooh, that's a good one. The most impactful. Um, Gosh, there's so many. Okay, probably I would say something that's pretty foundational.
Mhm.
And honestly, like having balanced meals. And there's a lot of other things to build on from there, but I would say having balanced meals, like making sure you're getting enough protein. Roughly, I would say 30 grams of protein with meals, but it can change depending on activity levels, like with who the person actually is.
Mhm.
Getting fiber with every meal and having healthy fats. So like the balanced meal. Um, but I would say that the reason why I say that is because it helps with energy. It helps with reducing inflammation because when we have blood sugars out of control, it also will increase inflammation. And I also find that a lot of people with endometriosis will skip meals or go long periods of time without meals, or
Mhm.
there's like a food fear component, so they're missing parts of their meals because they're afraid of how they might tolerate it. Um, and overarching, I would say we need more than we think we do. I
Mhm.
think people tend to undernourish themselves, and that's not great when your body needs more nutrients.
Yes, that's a good point too. Because like, what was that term? Like, yeah, like you said, undernourished. Like, even though like there, some people are eating this high calorie meals, but there's not enough vitamins and minerals in them to really like shuttle those, shuttle things to your cells and then give you the energy that you need and get some processes working.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like, what do you wish women with endometriosis understand about their bodies that most of them don't know yet?
That their bodies can that it can get better. That whatever, state that their body is in right now, that they don't have to live like this, that they can actually improve, that, it's not the end, that whatever
Mhm.
protocol, whether it be medications or any other protocol that they're on, if they're not seeing the quality of life that they would like to see for themselves, that they can move the needle and that there's a lot that they can do every single day towards getting to that place.
Hmm. So, like, also earlier before we began your interview, we had talked about like some of your clients are already on birth control, and they come
Mhm.
to you like, does that make it harder for you to work with them because they're taking it?
Somewhat. I would say it's at this point, I almost feel like it's more common that they're on birth control than not,
Mhm.
honestly. But there's definitely it does bring challenges about.
Mhm.
So for one, we do know that birth control does disrupt the gut microbiome. So we
Mhm.
have to support the gut even more so. Um, and then all the other things with birth control. But
Mhm.
it's not that I'm anti-birth control, so it's not like I'm rushing to, like, get them off, but I do educate them a lot on, like, what it does deplete. It depletes a lot of our minerals, our magnesium, our zinc,
Mhm.
and so I'm always clear about, like, "Okay, this is what's happening. You're taking medication that's doing this, so that means we
Mhm.
have to do the heavy lifting through our diet and our foundations to support it." So I guess the answer is, like, the maybe it's similar, like, I always support the gut, the liver, um, when we're talking about hormones and with endometriosis, but there's
Mhm.
definitely more heavy lifting for them to do,
Mhm.
if they are on birth control.
That makes sense because it's. I mean, yeah. I mean, let's if it's working for them, but then they don't want to be on it forever, and if they want some supportive, measures so they're not totally dependent on it.
Mhm.
Uh,
And some people come to me, want they're on birth control and, like, their goal is to get off birth control, and sometimes they're like, "Okay, I wanna get off next week," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no." You have to, like, gradually like, you need to get your body into a state, like, get these
Mhm.
habits together first, because you 'cause you'll be very unhappy if you get off of birth control and your gut is still not supported, your liver is still not supported, you're going to have really bad symptoms. They're probably going to be what they were before you got on birth control, or maybe even
Mhm.
worse.
Yeah. It's like I tell everyone, there's a time and place for everything. Like antibiotics, they're not bad. Sometimes they're needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
like, yeah, birth control, sometimes like that's the only option at that moment. But then, if you don't want to be dependent on it, then
Mhm.
let's start looking at, like you said, the triggers, lifestyle, and then the diet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, many women, so many of our viewers here see caring for their health as an act of stewardship. So, honoring the body that they've been given. So, how does that framework sit with you and the work that you do?
Ooh, I really like this. So I think of nutrition and eating specifically as a way of self-care and as a way of like I guess like using your words, stewarding your body that you're given. So I think when we take care of our bodies, that is showing stewardship. So that goes back to like not skipping meals, giving your body the respect that it deserves, nourishing your body, um, and even pulling it outside of nutrition, like moving, resting your body when it needs to have rest, sleeping. Um, and I think even having those quiet moments, moments without all the noise, all like the phones and the computers and the internet and all those things. But I think
Yeah.
those are all ways that we can be good stewards of our bodies, and our bodies, they show up for us when we show up for them. So I think it's something that's important that we bring in.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. So then, yeah, we're talking about diet. I just want to bring it back to just thought about it. So is intermittent? You said something about skipping meals. Is intermittent fasting like endometriosis friendly method?
That's a good question. So definitely, there is no study that I've seen that is shown that like positive for endometriosis. I have seen that it's, I guess maybe like more of a mild form is helpful. So that like
Mhm.
maybe like a 13-hour fast, for example, like 6 or 7 p.m. to like 7 a.m. or something like
Okay,
that. Like so, it's
interesting.
more of a
Anyway.
natural. Yeah, so it'd be like a more of a mild one. But anything more than that, I wouldn't recommend. It's pretty tough on the bodies, particularly for cycling women. But
Mhm.
even when you think about, I guess, even if someone's on birth control, maybe they're not cycling, but I think it's still important because intermittent fasting, it is a stressor on the body. So even in studies, they'll show that cortisol levels go up during intermittent fasting, and this is a population who already has dysregulation. We already have either high cortisol or low cortisol, or issues with blood sugar balance. So I think intermittent fasting is something, it requires an already steady foundation because it is such a stressor to the body. So I don't think this is the right population, especially if someone is not where they want to be in terms of quality of life. Like if they're in pain and skipping
Mm.
meals already, like unintentionally and that sort of thing, I think it's not a good place for it.
Yeah, but like if they're fasting from the inflammatory foods, right?
Right, that's different. And in place of that, having some anti-inflammatory foods, that could work.
Exactly. Like Lent, Lent, a lot of people give up chocolate and sugar,
Yeah,
and it's not intermittent fasting, but it goes
right.
through like you're giving up something for Lent, but then it's actually good for your body.
True, that is true.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanna bring up too the migrating motor complex, MMC.
Hmm.
So it's got basically like our bodies go through cycles of like where it's like self-cleansing for our gut. And it starts up after us not eating for 60 to 90 minutes, and then the cycle itself is 60 to 90 minutes. So I also, on the flip side, I don't recommend eating constantly. So I don't recommend eating like every single hour. It is helpful for our gut to be able to take, even if it's like a 3-hour break between meals, so that it gives our gut time to like actually push things through and go through its cycle throughout the digestive tract.
Like that rest and digest kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So many, where am I? So if someone is watching today and is just starting to connect the dots, so what is the first step that you would help tell her to take?
Ooh, probably, and this is assuming someone's already diagnosed or they suspect they have endometriosis. Um, I would take that awareness piece. So
Mm-hmm.
like doing like like an assessment and something that you can just do at home on your own, and it can even be helpful when you bring it to when you go to different providers appointments, but like mapping out your symptoms and also when
Mhm.
they started. So the first time that, and it could be specific that know for a fact that that is endometriosis related, but even put things that you maybe don't even think are endometriosis related, because the right provider can look at those things and be like, oh, I see, like this is actually, they can put the whole puzzle together for you.
Oh, yeah.
But the first time that you've had certain symptoms, like what age you were and severity, like kind of mapping out to where you are today. And I think in just that can give you a little bit of clarity of like, oh, I noticed that like this symptom came when there was mold in the house, or this showed up when I was actually really, really stressed during that time period. Things like that can give you little nuggets. And I think that could point you into areas of your life that require the most support to start off with.
I love that awareness. It's like it's really a good foundational piece to have for like anything, not just endometriosis. Because even like a lot of women like come to me and they say, "Oh, my periods are off," right? And then I'm like, "So what do you mean they're off?" "Well, I don't know. They're just off." So then like, okay, let's get some more substance here. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? And so, like, time frame, it's really important. That's why I really recommend, like, every woman, like, keep track. Even if I mean, you don't even need a fancy app. Let's go old school. Get your planner, get a paper calendar. Like, okay, my cycle started on this day, and it was heavy on this day, and then it started up again. Like next
Yeah.
month on this day. It's just really simple. We don't have really don't have to get fancy, and that's really good information, for our bodies because number one, it tells us how long our cycles are, like what happens during our cycles, and then how often does it come, and then like what we're feeling when we're on like specific phase of the month, like specific phase of our cycle.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, having that awareness around our menstrual cycle is so good too.
Mhm. Yeah, especially with endometriosis, because a lot, like the hallmark of a diagnosis of endometriosis is pain with your cycle.
Yeah. Hmm.
So Alexis, so it's a really good conversation. I feel like I've picked your brain a lot today, and I learned a lot myself. I didn't know about migrating water conflicts. So
Oh yeah.
thank you for bringing your whole self to this and your clinical expertise, and along with your experience. So this combination is really rare, and this community really needs to hear this. So for everyone watching, if today's episode resonated with you, you can follow Alexis on Instagram and YouTube. So at Alexis Brooks Nutrition. And actually, I'm going to put her QR code so you can um, see, see her program where she can like test your gut and then like get a good data for you like to start with. And if you want, more about the Endo Code reset, so there's the QR code. If you want to go dive deeper in working with her, so go to alexisbrooksnutrition.com. Do you have anything else to say to our audience, Alexis?
Thank you so much. This is Endometriosis Awareness Month too, so this is like perfect
Oh,
timing to be having this conversation, and I'm grateful to be able to share this information because 5 years ago when I was diagnosed, I did not know these things. So I'm really grateful to be able to share.
awesome. So please subscribe to the Blueville Wellness channel so you don't miss future conversations like this one. And if this episode helped you, share it with someone who's still searching for answers. That one share might be just change everything for her. And I want to leave you with this. So understanding your body is not a luxury, it's stewardship. When we take seriously what our bodies are communicating, we show up more fully for our families, our vocations, and the people that God has entrusted to us. So until next time, stay rooted in faith, intentional with your food, and aligned with function. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.